when I quit my staff job as a copywriter, it was not ever my intention to have a very long career in copywriting. It was just the company I worked for, most of our customers were successful entrepreneurs in their own right, people who owned e-commerce stores on the smaller end, doing, around $1 million a year in gross sales, right? Spending a lot of money on traffic, though. I don't want, like, not all millionaires. If you have $1 million business, that doesn't mean you're a millionaire. Anyway, so it was one of these things where I was very I had never been exposed to that much like entrepreneurial sort of work for yourself energy before. I had, done a lot of web design work in corporate environments and cubicle farms and that kind of thing, where it's just a very different attitude. And even the staff people who worked there all sort of had their own side businesses going in the first place, which is why they all came into this marketing company so we could all work together and learn stuff. Um, so I knew that I wanted to be a more generalized, quote unquote, guru sort of figure in the marketplace because that's who I was writing for. That's who my bosses were. And my job was basically to pretend to be them in writing to our audience. So I knew I could talk the talk. I just had to get out on my own and get some results that weren't inside that business environment where it was attributed to the company and my bosses. Once I went freelance, I could tell people that I wrote that stuff. And that was the plan, was to do a year or two writing launches and get, I think I ended up doing like 20 million or something in sales for my clients if you add it all together, based on like when they did a launch and they would brag about how many millions it sold in the first week or whatever. Once upon a time, I added those all together from like my first full career year, where I did, I think, 7 launches in 1 year. And it was like 20 million in sales total. But these are very expensive products, like $2,000 info products. So, it's not like tons and tons of copies sold. But these, like I said, these were all people that I worked for that had established audiences. This wasn't their first product. They had traffic, they had an existing customer base. So I knew these were going to be big launches worth tying my name to. And then I focused a lot on networking and getting on stages to speak, which I had never done, but I did it anyway because I knew that was the fastest way to get exposure to the people that I wanted to be connected with, which I guess sort of ironically was not the audiences at these business events that I would go to speak to. The people I really wanted to network with and have see me as an authority were the other people sharing the stage with me. So it was a shortcut into the producer world in my marketplace, the people who create the products and do the training and do the coaching. And I sort of weaseled my way into that by conning my way onto several stages. And I give a good talk. I know my stuff. I was good at my job. I got good results and sort of built up my reputation there. And then the discussion group, which now is, 15,000 people or so on Facebook, and it's my full time job, as you mentioned. I started that originally as just, it was like Skype was really popular at the time as like a tool for people who had group coaching, and they would put all their customers and students into a Skype group where they could interact with each other and ask questions. And because I had helped on launches of some of these things, several quote unquote gurus who, had their own audiences would invite me in to be in those groups in case anybody had copy questions about their own business. And I'm like, sure, I'm, farting around on the internet all day. I don't mind. Skype's open anyway. So I got involved in a bunch of those. And then I started my own that was me and colleagues that also were doing the same kind of work that I did, and clients I was doing like review work for who released a lot of products, and, just friends in the industry. And it was a small group on Skype. I don't think we ever hit the limit on Skype, but Skype has a limit of 300 anyway, or at least it did at the time, as far as the number of people you can stick in a chat group. And I had been wasting more and more time on Facebook, And some of the time I was spending on Facebook, I was in Facebook groups. It was the kind of thing where those places were sort of catching on as where the quality conversations were happening, whereas the overall impression is that several big business and marketing forums that were popular at the time were sort of diminishing in quality conversations to be had there. So just having the idea that I need to monetize all this time I'm wasting on Facebook, and the chat group and Skype is going well, and a lot of those people are on Facebook too. I'll start one of these Facebook groups, and worst case scenario, I learn how to use it in case it's something I want to do for clients, like pitch as a project for clients to get group writing done or whatever. And it caught on very fast, and I really don't know what specifically that's attributable to. Like I know I had a really good name for it. The cult of copy is catchy. You can tell immediately what it is if you're familiar with the kind of business we do. It's very evocative of what I wanted to put in there, because I wanted to collect and start conversations about, like we said at the beginning of the show, the darker side of copywriting, talking about tricks con artists use and cult leaders use and propagandists use. And most of that stuff is pretty taboo, I think, because professional writers are like, they don't want people to know they think of marketing that way, right? But I was never interested in having a huge amount of clients, so I didn't really care if it meant like people thought I was evil or whatever by talking about that stuff, because I like, and people might say, oh, that's terrible. That stuff's no good. But everybody likes that stuff. That's why heist movies are so popular, right? Everybody thinks tricky, sneaky criminals and con artists are cool, like secretly. But the thing is, they're not magicians. The tricks that they use are very applicable, and they use it to make the barest, hand to mouth living most of the time. Like they're very few and far between are like super successful con artists and criminals and tricksters, but they seem to have this amazing magical control over people. My idea is I want to explore that and look at it and talk about it with smart people who aren't like, clutching their pearls or whatever, to see what kind of things we could take back to use in legitimate ethical marketing. Because from my point of view, if you have a product that really helps people and you really believe in it, you have a duty to sell it to the people that it will help, even if they're resistant to it. Like, they might not want to buy, but if it will really help them get rid of a problem that they're just not wanting to face, no one's ever going to be, oh, I bought your product and it's great and it did everything you said it would and I'm so happy, but boy, I wish you wouldn't have tried so hard to sell it to me. I just feel tricked. No one's ever going to say that if you get them really good results. So that was the idea behind the group. At first, all I cared about was like, is it a cool place that I want to visit every day? So I would post stuff that I liked. I would share stuff that I liked. I would encourage people posting the stuff that I liked reading elsewhere to come into the group and post it. I would leave good comments. I would encourage people to leave good comments. It sort of kicked off this symbiotic ecology where it's self-sustaining. I don't consider myself as like the driving force of the group, even though it's sort of my group and I'm a very visible admin. But it kind of took on a life of its own, and people really feel like they belong, and it's got a good community going. And just over the past 3 years, it's built up, and I've been able to do training and consulting and mentoring for just the people inside of the group, where I was able to stop selling copy as a service that I did and start selling my knowledge about copy and persuasion and influence, and actually apply it to the way I was growing the group, which worked out really well. So it's sort of a self-fulfilling prophecy. And my little wish of quote unquote guruhood has come to fruition, because now I have a sizable audience and I get good results with my material and people are very happy with it. And it's all kumbaya over here, buddy.